It's finished. Slough Town 2, Altrincham 1 here at Arbour Park. I'm with Altrincham Interim manager Neil Gibson. Neil, what did you make of the game firstly?
Well, first and foremost, we're absolutely devastated to go out the FA Cup. Can only apologise on behalf of the group to the supporters who were back at home and the supporters who've braved it there today. And I went over to speak to them at the end because their support meant a lot to us, and we felt like our first half performance let them down. You know, there's no sugarcoating that. You know, and we take full responsibility as a group, and myself leading this group for this week, take full responsibility for that. So the way that the game panned out today was exactly the type of recipe you would want if you wanted a cup upset. It was the fact that Slough, and all credit to them, congratulations to Slough, they've earned their position in the next round, but Slough were on the front foot. They made it a fight in the first half. We didn't match that in terms of matching the battle that the first half was going to bring, and we were nowhere near the levels that we would expect for the group of players that we have. On that basis, they got themselves ahead. Second half, at half time, there's a lot of harsh words said at the changing rooms that the players reacted to. They understood themselves that they were nowhere near where they needed to be, and I felt there was a reaction in the second half. Obviously, we also made some changes which then enabled us to have more of a positive impact on the game. We got ourselves back into it, and I did feel when the first goal came, and I said at half time that if we got one, I felt we'd get two, and I felt it was on for us to go and win the fixture then. And unfortunately, the way that the last sort of 10-15 minutes of the games ended up playing out, it's we've ended up with a man down, and all the momentum we've built up and the pressure we'd applied to Slough in that first 25 minutes of the second half became really difficult to do that with a numerical disadvantage.
Let's go back to the first half of the game then. That first half an hour was quite a scrappy affair between both teams. Was that the kind of game you were expecting, and why do you think that was? Yeah,
no, look, Slough, all credit to them. We want to be, Altrincham have always been a possession-based football team. We were trying to build up play. They took a real brave stance, which was they pushed, they locked all 8 on, and left it 2 for 2 at the back. When we tried to go over the press into the 2v2 situation, we didn't execute the passing and we didn't hold the ball up. So a bit of both really from that aspect. And then once they started to pinch the ball off us, they grew in confidence to go and do that, and it became a battle in the first half that unfortunately we came out on the wrong side of. And second half we found different solutions to play and start to build up, but it shouldn't really take us till half time to be able to find those solutions.
2 goals in a space of just a few minutes, one from a corner, one across the 6-yard box. Do you think those 2 goals were avoidable?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, everyone would say that every goal they concede is avoidable. However, in terms of the desire, there'll be certain individuals, and I don't want to sort of criticise certain individuals at this moment in time, but certain individuals will know that they could have done better in certain circumstances. Now, my responsibility is to make sure that we get everybody buying in like we did last week against Braintree, and understanding the importance of keeping a clean sheet and not switching off or not making mistakes in and around our box, because I do feel that if we do that, we'll win more games than we don't. But yeah, the 2 goals are really disappointing from a coach's and manager's point of view. You mentioned that some harsh words were said at half time. Are you able to give us any intel as to what that was? Because that did provide a change coming out in the second half. Yeah, no, look, they were not, you know, the players are an honest group of players. They've been absolutely brilliant in terms of their attitude and work rate in the time that we've been in and how they've took it on board. And I just said that first half doesn't represent what we're about. Doesn't represent them as individuals and what they've shown me so far and what I've seen from them. So we can't think we can come here to Slough and be so far away from the best version of what we're capable of being. So the players understood that. You know, I think, you know, harsh words were spoken, but they are proud players who knew and understood that wasn't what they wanted in the first half, and they reacted. So credit to them for the reaction. And I think that ultimately on a different day, the result could have been different in the second half had we have had 11 men on the pitch towards the end. Well, it's a goal from James Gale that came just after that, and the substitutions that you made clearly worked. Do you think that there was anything in the game that could have changed if you look back on it in hindsight? I think, you know, I think the group of players, you know, the team are short on confidence. I don't think it's, you know, anything that's not something that's, for anybody that's watched enough of us over the period of time, it's quite obvious that that's where we're currently at. However, what we replicate and what we see from a Monday to Friday in the week, we've got to transfer that onto a Saturday and on the pitch when results matter and the supporters pay their hard-earned money to come and watch us. So we've got to understand that and make sure that we get ourselves to a point where we deliver what we do Monday to Friday on a Saturday when it really matters and the points count. Confidence and momentum gets built both ways. If we haven't won games of football for a long period of time, it's difficult to sort of build up that momentum that feel like in certain points of the game things are going to go in our favour. But we're the only ones that can change that as a group of staff and a group of players. And it's important then that we then, once we get that first result that we are absolutely determined to get, then that'll breed the confidence into the group to hopefully kick on and change the fortunes we've got.
Well, Elliot Osborne was sent off late on in the second half. It was difficult to see from where the Altrincham fans were what went on there. Is there any insight you can give us on that?
So yeah, I mean, Ozzy's a very honest player in my opinion. From the time that I've worked with him, if he'd have done something, he would have said straight away. The reaction of the players was quite clear to me, and the staff that he's been really unfairly treated in the way that's been handled. The player just walks across him. Ozzy's walking in one direction, and the player turns in the other direction, and they naturally collide accidentally. No intent at all from Elliot Osborne. It's completely natural. It's sort of like an accident in terms of the way they come together, and that was just really frustrating. But it was probably indicative of the way that certain aspects of decisions were on the day, and that's not sour grapes. It's not to take anything away from Slough, who I said before fully deserved their opportunity to go through to the next round based on the first half performance. But there was other things that went on in terms of tackles and fouls that were committed today that were more warranted of a red card than what Elliot Osborne got sent off for today, in my opinion.
On a more positive note then, over 300 Altrincham fans made the trip down here this afternoon. How important are those big numbers to the team going forward?
We aren't going to get out of this current run of form and this situation individually. We're not going to get out of it as a team separate from the coaching staff. We're not going to get out of it as a team and coaching staff separate from the board and separate from the supporters. Everybody at Altrincham Football Club's got to come together, and you're tested most when things are at their worst point. And look, I listened to the concerns of the supporters today when I went over to speak to them and thank them for travelling and paying their hard-earned money and travelling a long way. And we've got to appreciate that Braintree last week, this weekend is Slough away, next weekend is Truro, in 2 weeks after the Truro it's Southend. There's 4 big travels for our supporters to make, so we're going to need them. And I listen to their concerns. I fully understand their concerns, and the players fully understand, their concerns as well. And I think it's important now that, if we're going to try and get ourselves out of the current situation, we all pull together, and that's the only way you will get out of it. Because if we start to sort of fracture, then it'll take longer to repair.
Well, the game a little bit closer to home comes up next. Boston at home on Wednesday. Yeah. Almost the perfect opportunity to turn this round. How important is that game, and how do you go about preparing for it? Yeah, look, it's absolutely pivotal. When you're in the current situation that the football club finds themselves in, and where we are in the table, and obviously going out in an early round in the cup competitions, it's a difficult situation to be in. So you want a game straight away. I certainly feel like if the game was Monday night, we'd be ready for it. But now it starts now. The preparation starts now. The planning starts now on the way home on the coach to ensure that come Monday morning and Tuesday when we're in to train, that we are a different version, with a second half version of ourselves rather than the first half version of ourselves, and we end up coming out on the right side of a result, because it's got to happen. That group of players are far too good. They're good people in there. It hurts them. I can't tell you how hurt the players are in there. A lot of them have been at the football club for a long time, and we felt this was an opportunity to have an FA Cup run. So we are going to address this. We're going to get the players galvanised together, hopefully with the support of the fans, and we want a reaction on Wednesday night. Thank you for your time, Neil. Many thanks.